Hi, and welcome to Ignite 2022, an industry-focused professional panel series. My name is Katie Martucci. I use she, her pronouns. I'm our Assistant Director for Career Education in the Center for Student Professional Development at DelVal University, and I will be your friendly Ignite facilitator. Today's panel features professionals from the ag food processing industry who work at our featured employer, Mountaire Farms. As a reminder, if you enjoyed today's conversation, you can email cspd@delval.edu to connect one-to-one with any of our panelists. And you can also check out additional Ignite recordings on the CSPD SharePoint site, which will be linked in the video notes. So without further delay, let's dive in. And I'd love to invite our panelists here to introduce themselves, and then we'll go into Q&A.
Hello, my name is Kathy Bassett, and I am the Director of Communications and Community Relations here at Mountaire Farms.
And I'm Charlie Garlund. I'm the Director of Sales Strategy and Planning. I've been in this role for about a year and with the company for 5 now.
I'm Kate Beauchamp. I'm the Production Yield Supervisor, and I've been with Mountaire for about 14 months now.
Hi, my name is Travis Tirrell. I'm the shift manager at Millsboro, Mountaire. I've been with the company for 7 years, and I've spanned a couple of my jobs have spanned across production and human resources.
I'm Karla Sandoval. I'm the Talent Acquisition Program Specialist. I've been with the company about 14 months as well.
Very well, thank you everybody so much for your time today and being with us. So our first question is, how and when did you learn about your current career choice and industry?
Well, that is a great question. I started my career as a newspaper reporter, actually, a long time ago. And my career has taken so many different turns, as life does. So I was only a reporter for 3 years, and then I had an opportunity to be a press secretary on Capitol Hill. So I worked for a member of Congress for 16 years in that role. And after that ended, I started my own business, had my own public relations and marketing business. I did that for 8 years. And I had the good fortune of having one of the chicken companies as a client of mine. And that's how I first my introduction to the chicken industry. I certainly had seen, how important it is here on Delmarva before then, but actually working directly for a chicken company. So that was about 6 years ago. And about 4 years ago, I started working for Mountaire Farms full time. So it's been a long and winding road, but a great industry, great opportunity here at Mountaire.
And so I wouldn't necessarily call it windy, but I started, I'm born and raised in Texas and lived my whole life down there. Had no intent of ever moving up here, or hardly knew how to spell Delaware when I moved up here, if I'm honest. But went through school and had a finance degree throughout the most part of it, had background in private equity and consulting internships. And actually, Travis's dad was head of VP or head of HR at the time, and called me and got in contact with me about the internship process here. And I figured, why not, right? What's the harm in trying something outside of what I expected? And it took me about a week to know that this is where I was going to spend my life. Loved the plant, loved the process, and did the internship trainee program, and then went into production for a few years. Really got into that area and just loved every minute of it. Moved into analytics, kind of a little bit more where my background was, to be able to help throughout kind of COVID time and provide analysis and projections for that. And then jumped into sales about 1.5 years ago, helping with the strategy and planning for this department.
So I believe a lot of my reason for choosing this career was a lot of my background. I come from poultry. My parents are actually growers from Mountaire. We grow grain and chickens for them. But my dad really opened me up to how passionate he was about poultry, and I grew up with it, and it was something that I really became passionate about myself. So when I decided that I wanted to go to college for agriculture, it was always ideal in the back of my mind that I would work in the poultry industry. And coincidentally ended up working out very well, that I was able to get into Mountaire's management trainee program right when I was on my undergrad. And then I had the opportunity to be able to do my master's also with DelVal within that year that I was a trainee. And once I was done with the management trainee process, you have to learn the entire vertical integration system within Mountaire. And I fell in love with production. It's just something I honestly did not think I would love as much as I did. But you really learn to appreciate the process and the people and how much is involved. And I'm very happy where I'm at career-wise. So.
And Kate, can I just ask a quick follow-up? I'm just curious, and I think students might be as well. Did you do a 4+1 program at DelVal?
Yes, I did the 4+1 for agribusiness management.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I actually had no intentions of working in poultry. So I knew that I was actually an engineer in college. And when I was transitioning from my junior year to my senior year, I needed an internship credit. And I had no interest in moving anywhere from where I grew up to get that credit. So I opted to come as an intern to Mountaire, and I had hopes of working in our resource recovery facility, working with chicken byproduct to create biodiesel, right? To kind of write something up on how we could make biodiesel, right? And then run our fleet off of that sustainability type deal. And I ended up being placed in production, and I started looking at throughputs and efficiencies. And my senior year, when I got finished with the internship, my senior year, I actually started working on putting together a minor for economics and statistics. And that really kind of like opened up my eyes to what I really enjoyed, right? I enjoyed numbers. I enjoyed real life data that affected day by day processes. And that is when I decided, okay, I'm going to go back as a trainee. So I applied for the training program. I went through the training program. And at that time, this was 7 years ago, it was in 2015. You could opt out at 26 weeks. So I transitioned into processing halfway through my program, did an expedited process for the remainder of this 6 months in that training program, which is a great program, by the way, and went into production. And then I transitioned through a couple different supervisor spots. I enjoyed what I was doing, but I wanted to see a different side of the industry. So I transitioned into HR. And that really taught me a lot about working with people, developing people, right? Because regardless of the product that we put out, when you work in a facility or a business that is so labor intensive, right? It requires a lot of people, a lot of teamwork, a lot of camaraderie to make all the things tick properly. You're in the people industry, right? So that really taught me to enjoy the people side of it. And with that being said, I moved on from HR, transitioned back into processing, and went through a couple different promotions in processing. But it kind of opened my eyes to what we do, right, as far as processing chickens, but also the industry we're in is a people industry. And that really, what I'm doing now as a shift manager, Millsboro, really lets me work both sides. And I really enjoy that.
Thank you so much. And Karla, did you want to go as well? No, okay. I'm sorry. You sent me a message and I didn't get a chance to see. I apologize. Okay, so we'll dive into next question. So this might be a reiteration, but you can kind of take it in whatever direction that you want to, because it's always interesting to me to dive a little deeper into a career story. So how has your career differed or stayed the same from what you imagined it would have been when you first started out? And you can go as far back or as recent as you want to.
So yeah, I didn't mention it, but I was an international affairs major in college. So at the time, I thought I wanted to be a diplomat and solve the world's problems. So it's I guess I have a little bit different what I'm doing now than that. And then I took a couple journalism classes and I fell in love with journalism. And I realized that instead of solving the world's problems, I would just report on other people solving the world's problems. Much easier role. So, and I love journalism. I didn't think, I thought I would have a whole career in journalism, right? You get your first job out of college, and I thought that was going to be my entire career, but I spent only 3 years as a reporter, but I have used the skills I learned in that first job as a reporter in every job I've had since. And so, as I said, my career has taken lots of different turns, and never, ever did I ever think I'd be working in chicken full time, but I oversee all of our internal communications. I oversee our external communications. I deal with reporters. I'm still in the same realm. It's just a slightly different role. So yeah, if I have one piece of advice, it is just to be a lifelong learner and keep your eyes open, and don't be afraid of new opportunities. That has been the key to my career, and just staying current, staying on top of things.
So you'll have to repeat the question for me. I got too interested in Kathy's answer.
That happens. It happens. So how has your career differed or stayed the same from what you imagined it would be when you first started?
Okay, yeah. So you heard kind of a little bit of the background, right, with private equity and consulting. Obviously, that's not chicken. I would say the only thing that initially got me, I guess, had my ears peaked a little bit is the private equity focus that I had, and the consulting focus that I had was in manufacturing of sorts. I was in Houston, Texas, so it was more oil focused. But it's, there is some correlation to at least understanding of manufacturing, but I'd still never imagined that I'd jump into this. And then, one of the joys of this company, and frankly, most of this industry, is you look around this room, and one, I don't think anyone's doing what their major was right now. And then the other side is you've got so many different areas that you could work in that, as you look at younger and younger generations, part of, what's enjoyed is that people like to switch focuses, right? They like to learn more. They like to grow in their career. And it doesn't mean, up. Sometimes it means sideways, to learn something new. And you've got a great opportunity, and I've been able to do that here. I've been able to spend 3 years in production and work both in North Carolina and in Delaware. Helped start our night shift facility in Siler City, running, the whole back half process for a while there. It was difficult to say the least, but a great experience to be able to learn and do something new and different. And then jumping into the analytics, where my job is basically just to look at any number available and dive into everything that's going on. And you can really get to see more and more about what a company, what an industry does and faces, by just talking to people, with some numbers there behind you, but to be able to hear from everybody what everybody's going on, and then I would definitely say, while my degree is nowhere close to sales, my personality is even farther from sales. So getting into this area has been a growth opportunity, to say the least. Learning this industry and how we deal with shelf life, inventory turnover, supply chain in general, freight, all of those types of things that most industries can kind of take their time on. But when you're being told you've got 14-day shelf life, we've got to move. So even the typical slowed down process of sales, as people may view it, is it's not the same here either. So kind of getting to be able to see something new and still high energy in an area that isn't production and processing, which, again, I loved every minute of that. And if I had the energy for that all day, every day, I'd still be there. So I respect, Kate and Travis for the efforts they put in day out.
So I always knew that agriculture is the route I wanted to take, but I always had favoritism towards poultry. I really think a lot of, I think as it previously says, because my parents really showed me the passion they had for poultry. But so once I got into the management training program, so when you learn that entire vertical integration system, you're at the hatchery, the feed mill, your grain, you go to sales, processing plant, you go to all the different departments and you get to see the entire process from start to finish. And I initially, in the back of my mind, I had a little bit of favoritism towards our live operations side, which is like our hatchery, our grow out sides where the birds are raised, and our feed mill. And I think a lot of that was because of my background. I was like, yeah, I have a little favoritism towards that. Maybe that's where I want to go. And then once I started the program and just started learning all the different departments, I was like, there's just so much to see. I was like, I can't be favored towards that. So the biggest thing for me, I think, as to why I enjoy the training program so much is that I was so open-minded. And once I got into it, took me a couple of departments. And once I got through them, I was like, you have to be open-minded just to be able, because I wasn't sure where I was going to end up in the end. It's a year program. And then you get to apply to positions that are open and pretty much a department that it depends on what's available, but so you apply to departments that you're interested in. And for me, I never thought I'd end up in production. I'm not going to lie, I was almost dreading production a little bit. And once I started in initially first processing, it's interesting because I remember Charlie had texted me and asked me how I liked it. And I said, I absolutely loved it. And I never thought I would. And there's a lot of moving parts to it, but it really, really makes you appreciate the people and the process so much. And there's like something always going on every day. And one thing I think I've really enjoyed so far is that I am challenged every day. Not gonna lie, it does get overwhelming. But it is something like I love going to work. I love the people I work with. And it's just, I never thought when people are like asking like, oh, what department did you choose? And I'm like, oh, I chose production. Everyone's like, what? We thought you'd be in live operations or somewhere else. And I was like, I just love production. And it's something about it that just is fulfilling to me. So, but I cannot say I thought career-wise I would be where I'm at right now, but I'm very happy that I chose production.
So my career, it's kind of difficult to say that I had a career path drawn out. I think once you get into the management training program, and you see the complexity of such a large organization, it's kind of hard to say, I want to be this in 15 years or this. You might have a goal, right? You might have somewhere you want to go, but as far as the steps to get there, when you're in it every single day, there are so many different ways to get where you want to go that it's almost ill-advised to say that I have to do it this way, right? Because then you kind of block yourself off to the other opportunities that may present themselves and help you get where you want to go, right? It may have seemed even, just to go back to when I started, right? I spent 1.5 years in production. When I got into production, I knew I wanted to be in production. That's about as far as I got. I know that I'd like to go as far as I can go in production, and that's as far as I am. But it was counterintuitive to some people for me to go to HR, when in all actuality, it was really a good thing for me. It helped me a lot with presence. It helped me a lot with presentation. It helped me a lot with dealing with difficult conversations. It helped me understand that recognizing good deeds is just as important as correcting and assisting people with bad habits or whatever you want to call them, right? So I would say that I quickly into my career, early on, I kind of opted not to say I'm going to do exactly this, right? One of the things that I say now in this industry, and I think in any industry right now, especially, right, there's openings and there's positions across the board, right? There's opportunities everywhere, and we all know this working in the professional world. But one of the things that I say is I really just want to do my job well, and if you do your job well, that's how you get recognized and get where you want to go.
Thank you so much. So if you can all think of a brief obstacle, challenge, failure, what have you, what you want to call it, that you faced in your professional life so far, and then how you got to the other side of it. If you could share a brief story, that'd be great.
Well, I would say that, I'd spent 16 years working for a congressman and pretty comfortable in that role at that point. And then he lost re-election. So suddenly, and I had relocated to our district. So I was working out of our district office, and there was not a lot of press secretary jobs available in the district. So I had to reevaluate my career at that point and what I was going to do. And, I thought that I had established a lot of contacts, and I was pretty well known, among lots of business and industry and whatnot, that I assumed sort of that the job offers would just come flowing in, and they didn't. So I really had to reinvent myself. And so I started my own business. I gathered all of the tools that I thought that I could offer as a consultant. And that's what I did. So I started my own consulting business and gradually picked up clients and worked with some really amazing clients. And for 8 years, I was super proud that, I met a lot of great people and was able to, change my career that quickly. But so really it's just pivoting. It's being able to see opportunities and not be afraid to pursue them. Starting your own business was something that, while I always thought that I wanted to do something like that, it was like, boom, suddenly I had that opportunity. So don't be afraid to change. Change is hard sometimes, but it can also be very rewarding. So that would be perhaps the biggest obstacle I've faced in my career so far.
So it's funny, I had to work through a list of, I don't know, ever growing and kind of narrow it down to one of things that I messed up on, or, made the wrong decision and had to try and figure out how to get through it. And it's funny to hear Kathy talk about jumping, to taking a risk and it paying off. I would say that my biggest, I guess if you want to call it hiccups, has been actually when I was in production. I was talking to the plant director at the time, and I was ready for a promotion, ready to leave supervisor and become superintendent. So you're managing managers at that point instead of, skilled line workers. Your focus is a little different, but I was ready. I knew I was ready. I was sure I was ready. I'd been supervisor for almost a year at that point. And he kept telling me, no, you're not ready. You're not ready. We'll give you this. We'll provide, you more opportunity to show your responsibility. We'll give you additional areas, whatever. We're not giving you superintendent. So I said, fine, I'm going to move down to North Carolina to one of the newer facilities that's willing to risk more on younger people, because they've got a lot more to fill, right? You've got 0 people, and instead of hiring only 1 superintendent at a time, you've got 10 that you have to add. But I can do this. So I went down to a state I had never lived in before, with area of people that I didn't know, and tried to go from running a process that had been running for 30 plus years to starting a process. And let me tell you, it was, I wasn't ready, right? So I did since call the plant director. I was like, okay, you might have been a little right. I've still got some learning to do. So at that point, it was kind of a combination of digging in, being able to put in the work and the effort that's required, and leaning on those that had the experience that I didn't have. That I had never managed, supervisors at the time, and so I didn't fully know the differences that it took to how to handle situations differently, how to de-escalate differently. All of it was just a little different. And to have to go through that, with the big risk of being down there, it really took me, relying and talking to people that had the experience, that had done it before, that knew Mountaire's culture, that knew how to have those conversations, and were willing to invest in a younger person who was eager, excited, but inexperienced for sure.
So for me being pretty new in my career, I have thought about this question after I got the email and I saw the list, and I thought this was a little bit harder for me to answer. Um, but some of the obstacles that I feel like I've really on a smaller scale of obstacles that I really have been learning to face is be like starting out as a supervisor has been learning how to manage people. That is something, learning how to overcome that situations. And one thing I feel like I use a lot of is the people I work with as resources that are in upper management. They're very good to talk to, willing to give advice when I'm trying to learn how to like handle a situation with an employee or a problem that I might have. Um, so I've been thankful to have those people at the plant to be able to use as a resource. But another thing that's really been challenging is learning how to prioritize when you have a very long list of things to do each day, and there's certain things that have to be done that day, but then you have upper management coming to you like, we need this right now, we need this, but then you have other things to do. So that's one thing that I've really been trying to balance, is learning how to prioritize all the different things I have to do. And I'm still learning from that. So I don't have the full answer from that other than me being able to communicate with them, be like, hey, so how soon do you need this? You know, what needs to be done today? Or, hey, that can wait. Communication has helped with that. And that's still something I'm overcoming like each day at work, is trying to learn that. So
So an obstacle. Well, I think in processing, for me, it may be a little bit different because we make a lot of decisions real time, right? There's a lot of moving parts. We process X amount of birds a day, and on day shift, there's somewhere around 1,100 employees, right, in multiple different departments. So it's a lot of little decisions that you have to make, right? And I guess some would say that my transition into the role that I'm in now was pretty quick. And so one day you go from being at the college dorm hanging out with your buddies, and then the next day you're supervising and managing, skilled line workers. And the next day you're managing 5 supervisors, and the next year you're managing 10 and a superintendent, and it keeps going on, right? So I guess the biggest thing I've had to learn how to do is make a decision and stick to it. And what I mean by that is as you go on in your professional career, what you'll end up finding is that when people are apprehensive, they refrain from making any decision at all. And that's because they're afraid to make a mistake, right? You're afraid to mess up. And one of the things that someone told me before is not making a decision is a decision. And it's always the wrong one, no matter what, right? If you just make a decision, the worst case scenario is you mess up and you learn from it. If you're doing it right, you learn from it, right? Best case scenario is you pick the right one. But if you don't make one at all, you're always wrong. So at some point in your professional career, when you manage people and you work with people, coach and train, you've got to be okay with sometimes you're going to make the wrong call, but make a decision, because being indecisive is a lot more detrimental to you and your processes than just being stagnant. Stagnant that's a bad move. Don't do it.
Thank you so much. A lot of wisdom on the panel. I want to pause for a minute here and give Karla space to provide more of an introduction and an overview of Mountaire. And then I'm hoping that afterwards we'll have time for one last question with the panel. So Karla, I'm going to go ahead and share screens with you.
Okay. So I have a 5-minute PowerPoint for an overview of Mountaire.
Thanks. Sounds great. Yeah, you have the floor.
Mountaire, fresh young chicken. For those of you who haven't heard of Mountaire Farms, we are currently the 4th largest chicken producer in the United States, providing work for almost 10,000 employees. Our company mainly operates out of North Carolina and Delaware, but we also have smaller satellite locations in Maryland, Virginia, and Arkansas. Mountaire Farms began as a commercial feed business in 1914, and we have grown into a vertically integrated company who is still family owned. Our business consists of three main functions: live operations, processing operations, and sales and administration. Starting off in live operations, it all begins with our breeder division located in Statesville, North Carolina. Currently, Mountaire's breeder division is the largest breeder operation based out of one location in the entire United States. Our breeder operation produces 8.5 million eggs per week and covers roughly 13 counties in the state of North Carolina. We have almost 150 pullet, layer, and stud growers with over 520 houses in the North Carolina area. Once we collect the eggs from our breeder operation, they are taken to one of our 4 hatcheries. We have 2 hatcheries in North Carolina and 2 hatcheries on the eastern shore of Delaware and Maryland. Between our 4 hatcheries, we place over 7.2 million chicks each week, and over 374 million chicks are placed per year. Once the chicks leave our hatcheries, they are placed on a contracted farm. With Delmarva and North Carolina combined, we have over 1,100 growers that help raise our broiler flocks. When it comes to how many birds we place on a farm at once, we identify stocking density by the square footage of the house, ventilation capabilities, and the season. All of our birds have easy access to food and water at all times. Once our broiler birds reach roughly 6 to 7 weeks, we transport them to one of our 4 processing complexes located in Delaware and North Carolina. Currently, our largest processing facility is in Lumber Bridge, North Carolina. Our Lumber Bridge complex harvests over 2.8 million pounds of chicken each week. With all 4 processing facilities combined, we harvest over 7.6 million pounds of chicken per week. Mountaire Farms is a private label company that services over 80 countries. We sell our product to the wholesale, retail, and export segments of the market. Some of our wholesale partners include Zaxby's, Arby's, Kraft, and Hillshire Farms. 25% of our wholesale product is then sold to further processors. Foods that are made from our product include hot dogs, lunch meat, breaded tenders, chicken nuggets, chicken sausages, and frozen TV dinners. Now that you have an idea of who we are, let's talk career opportunities. Learn the industry from the ground up with one of the largest poultry producers in the country during a 50-week management trainee program. As a trainee, you will work in the following areas: live operations, which includes breeders, hatchery, grow out, feed mill, agribusiness, and more. Processing operations, which includes live haul, first and second processing, quality assurance, and more. Lastly, sales and support, which includes sales and marketing, accounting, transportation, IT, HR, and more. We also have a summer internship program. Our summer internship program provides a meaningful work experience over a period of 12 weeks, perfect for a summer break. Interns receive a mentor and a project, resulting in valuable relationships and industry knowledge. We have over 30 internship positions starting at $15 an hour, and housing is provided. Here are a few highlighted internships. You can find job postings at mountairijobs.com. When applying, be sure to attach a resume with a good contact number and email. When interviewing, be sure to familiarize yourself with the company or operation and the position you are applying for. If you have any questions regarding career opportunities, please reach out to Karla Sandoval.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have time for one last question. If you can all dig deep for a little pearl of wisdom for our students, what advice would you give them, DelVal students who are interested to work at Mountaire or start work in your industry after they graduate from DelVal?
Well, let's see, pearls of wisdom. I think I already revealed this pearl, but be a lifelong learner. I'm always amazed at how college professors stay abreast of the latest and greatest trends in social media and how they're teaching kids today, because kids today know more than anybody else in it. But that's the point. So you got to stay current. You got to stay, certainly in my field of communications, marketing, anything like that. You've got to continue to challenge yourself to learn the latest and greatest. When I hire people on my team, I'm always looking for people who have a strong set of skills in a variety of things, whether it's engaging people, using technology, writing, videography, all of that stuff is so valuable now in storytelling. And, I saw one of the sharks from Shark Tank say that, the person that he would spend the most money on right now is storytellers, someone who can really share what a business is all about, for recruiting, for sales, for new customers, for anything. Yeah, those are some of my nuggets of wisdom.
So I've got a couple that come to mind, but I would say kind of first and foremost, especially, as when we got all of us, except for Kathy, when we came in as a trainee, and your job is to learn the job role and learn about the company and learn stuff. What I didn't realize until, later than I would have liked is that's not the best value that I got out of that. The value that I got out of that was the relationships, the people that you get to talk to on a daily basis, no matter where you go. If you misunderstand the fact that at the end of the day, the value of a person as an individual, that's their own thoughts, their own opinions, their experiences. If you misunderstand that what they are is more than just a vehicle or an obstacle, but they're an individual, it'll help you grow immensely, no matter where you go. You'll get to learn from all sorts of different experiences and backgrounds, and valuing that person, respecting that individual. And to this point, I can call just about each different facility and I still know somebody there, right? Because the relationships that you build, those don't go away. I can't tell you how to run live anymore, and I can't tell you what you do in a feed mill to the perfect T of what the feed formulations are. But I could call Mike Lindbeck, who's running the facility over here, or Don Hickman, who runs the hatchery. I still remember them from the trainee program, because the relationships that you build throughout your life is something that cannot be understated or overstated in terms of the value that it can bring.
So from someone who came right from college and jumped right into the poultry industry, I think one of the biggest things for me was about being open-minded about what I was learning. There's gonna be certain things that, it's gonna be all new opportunity, new things to you, and there also might not be something you enjoy quite as much as might be something you enjoy more than something else. And I think just being so open-minded about it and just being willing to learn is something that's very important. And really touching on what Charlie said was the connections you build. I feel like the same way. I can call someone from another department and be like, hey, what about this? Or if I have a question about something that correlates with my job, you just make a phone call, send an email. It's really about building the connections. And I think that was very important with starting my career. And that's also good with the job opportunities, also building those connections, making impact and being open-minded to learning. If you make a good impact on that department or that certain person you build a connection with, that's an opportunity for a job down the road if you want to, either expand your career or move up in your career. So I really think, kind of touching what Charlie said, was the connections is a big thing.
Yeah, so Charlie and Kate kind of took my answer, but whenever we have a trainee come through processing, that is the number one thing I tell them. right, is build connections. Part of that is, don't just build the connections. Typically, when you're a trainee, you move in and you're assigned to a manager of the facility or a manager of a department. But build connections with everyone around. One of the things that I find really interesting, and I think it's a great thing, and it's a positive note to Mountaire. Part of the reason I love the company is a lot of the people I met 7 years ago that were supervisors here or superintendents here or lead men there are now running their respective areas or have grown in their respective departments, and we kind of get to see each other grow at the same time. And it makes it really enjoyable to look back and say, man, there are so many opportunities afforded to us. So definitely focus on meeting people, learning people. Don't get so caught up in the learning that you get rigid, right? You don't want to be rigid. You want to be free flowing, bring good energy, and build relationships, right? So that's what I would say is probably the most important aspect of the internship and the training program.
Well, thank you again, everyone, for your words of wisdom and for your time today. This concludes our panel. So just thank you and have a wonderful rest of your day.